They didn't call it genocide at first. They didn't call it murder. They called it policy. They called it order. They called it necessary. The Holocaust did not begin with gas chambers. It began with words, with whispers, with lies repeated until they sounded like truth. And post-World War I Germany, the nation was broken, defeated, humiliated, drowning in debt and anger. And in that chaos, a voice rose to power, offering simple answers, dangerous ones. It blamed Germany's suffering on enemies within: Jews, Roma, disabled people, political opponents, homosexuals, anyone who did not fit the vision of a pure nation. Nazism was built on a terrible ideology: the belief that some lives mattered more than others, that humanity could be ranked, measured, and erased. In 1935, the Nuremberg laws stripped Jewish people of their citizenship. They could no longer vote, marry non-Jews, or hold certain jobs. Their rights were taken one law at a time, quietly, legally, efficiently. Then came Kristallnacht, the night of broken glass, on November 9, 1938. Synagogues burned, Jewish businesses were smashed, and homes were destroyed. Over 30,000 Jewish men were arrested in a single night. The message was clear: you are no longer safe. When World War II began in 1939, persecution became systematic annihilation. Germany invaded Poland, home to millions of Jews. Entire communities were herded into ghettos, sealed neighborhoods, surrounded by walls and barbed wire. Inside, people starved. Disease spread. Children begged for crumbs. Bodies lay in the streets because there was no strength left to bury them. Yet even in this despair, life tried to survive. People taught secret classes, held prayers in whispers, and wrote diaries, hoping that someone, someday, would read their story. Then the killing escalated. As Nazi forces pushed eastward, mobile death squads, the Einsatzgruppen, followed behind. They lined families at the edges of pits, forced them to undress, and shot them one by one: babies, elders. Entire villages erased in a single afternoon. This was mass murder in the open, and still much of the world hesitated. By 1941, the Nazis sought something more efficient: fewer bullets, fewer witnesses. They built extermination camps: Auschwitz, Treblinka, Sobibor, Belzec, Chelmno, Majdanek. These were not prisons, they were factories of death. Trains arrived daily, packed with people who had been told they were being relocated. Families clutched suitcases, children held hands. Some still believed they would live. Within hours, most were dead. At Auschwitz-Birkenau, a simple gesture of the hand on the arrival platform decided one's fate: work or death. Those sent to the left were marched to gas chambers disguised as showers. Zyklon B pellets were dropped from the ceiling. The doors were sealed, and in minutes, there was only silence. Bodies were burned in crematoria day and night. Ash fell like snow, and the smell of death never left the air. Those deemed useful were forced into labor, starved, beaten, and worked until their bodies collapsed. Horrific medical experiments were carried out without consent. Twins were injected with chemicals. Prisoners were frozen, infected, and mutilated, all in the name of so-called science. Disability was a death sentence. The Nazi euthanasia program murdered tens of thousands of disabled people, including children, long before the camps reached their full, terrible scale. Yet even in this hell, there was resistance. Prisoners sabotaged factories, smuggled gunpowder, and revolted inside the death camps. In the Warsaw Ghetto, Jews rose up against impossible odds. They knew they would likely die, but they chose to die fighting. Resistance wasn't always armed. Sometimes it was an act of survival: sharing a piece of bread, writing down names, refusing to forget who you were. As the killing continued, the world knew more than it often admitted. Reports reached allied leaders. Photographs existed. Testimonies leaked out. But for many, borders stayed closed and rescue requests were denied. Millions were left with nowhere to flee. By the time Allied forces liberated the camps in 1944 and 1945, they found skeletons walking toward them. They uncovered mass graves, mountains of shoes, hair, and eyeglasses, names without faces. 6 million Jews were murdered. Alongside them, millions of others: Roma, disabled people, Poles, Soviet prisoners of war, Jehovah's Witnesses, LGBTQ individuals, and political dissidents. Whole cultures were wiped out, languages were silenced, families were erased from history. After the war, survivors searched for relatives who would never return. Many had no homes to go back to, no communities left. The world struggled to comprehend what had happened. Trials were held, and some justice was served, but no sentence could ever match the crime. The Holocaust changed the meaning of evil. It proved that genocide does not require monsters, only obedience, silence, and indifference. It showed how quickly ordinary people can become executioners, and how quickly neighbors can become strangers. Today, the Holocaust is remembered not just as history, but as a warning. Because it didn't begin with killing, it began with division, with dehumanization, with the belief that some lives matter less, and that belief has never fully disappeared. We must remember the names, the voices, and the silence that allowed it to happen, because forgetting is the final victory of those who committed these atrocities. Thank you for watching and for remembering with us.